You are watching Concussed. Understand the invisible injury. It's been kind of a crazy week. I had a couple of guests lined up, and unfortunately, they were not unable to make it. And it's actually to my benefit because just recently, Brett Favre was featured in a very powerful new PSA by the Concussion Legacy Foundation. Chris Nowinski, one of my all-time favorites. I feel so honored to call him my friend. I've had the opportunity to travel to New Zealand, Australia with him. We've seen him in Germany, and he's doing just an amazing job with Tim Fleischer and the group, Dr. Cantu, and of course, Dr. Ann McKee, obviously with the Boston University. I just want to do a shout out to them today and have an opportunity to talk about this new, very powerful PSA that came out. And Brett Favre, obviously we know him as a Hall of Fame quarterback. He suffered some concussions, and he's come out and he's actually made a statement, and we're going to watch that right now. All right, a little bit of a technical issue. Jordan LaRoche, who's going to come up in a bit and talk with us about concussions, of course, all the things that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks. We're going to try this again. We apologize, a little bit of a technical issue, but this is a very important message. Listen to this as a parent of a young child deciding whether or not to play football, and that then can also be about other contact sports at this very young age.
Mom, Dad, let's talk about tackle football. I just learned about CTE, the brain disease caused by repeated hits to the head. The more years I play, the more I'm at risk. If you put me in tackle today...
By the time I'm a senior in high school, I'll have played 13 years of tackle football. I could already have CTE, and it will continue to destroy my brain even after I stop playing. So by the time I'm your age,
I could be fighting depression, struggling to keep my thoughts straight. I can become violent, even towards my own children. When I'm your age, what will matter to me is not my youth football career, but that, like you, I'm a great parent and I can provide for my family.
So please, keep me out of tackle football until I'm 14.
Well, very powerful message. It's something that when I was a kid, I never had to deal with this, never even thought about it. And what's really cool about Chris Nowinski is he's in our book called Concussed. I tried to get him on the show today. Unfortunately, he is overwhelmed. This is a tremendous PSA that's obviously garnering a lot of praise, but there's also some naysayers. There's going to be people that are in the tackle football business that are going to be saying, come on, we need more research. But I think it's only common sense when you have a young boy or girl playing a contact sport and their brain is still developing. We do have to take caution. And I think we'll talk to Jordan in a few minutes about that, because what does a young man think? What does a young teenager or a young former athlete, he played at a very high level, suffered concussions? I'd love to hear his take on it. I just want to talk a little bit about Chris Nowinski. Obviously, he is, for me, one of those guys that deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He has challenged everybody, the NFL, the WWE, or the WWF in the old days. He challenged them all to say, listen, we have to do something about this. We're damaging our brain at alarming rates. And he, with the Concussion Legacy Foundation, I've been to a couple of their galas. There is nothing better than this organization to get the message out. Stop Concussions is just a very small organization that helps educate people on the grassroots, whereas Chris Nowinski is able to spread this message around the world very effectively. And right behind me, you see Team Up, Speak Up. It's a tremendous opportunity for kids, teams, players, parents to talk about it and make sure that if you are playing a sport and your friend, whether it's a boy or girl or a man or woman, gets concussed playing, you're going to speak up and you're going to say, hey, he's not right or he's not feeling appropriate. So we have to, or she isn't. CTE is a terrible disease, and we need to know everything we can to prevent it for our next generation. What is CTE? We will get in that with Chris Nowinski, and they're good people. In the next couple of weeks, I'll get Chris on, and he can define it. But it's chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and it's basically a rare disease, however, is created by these traumas to the brain. And we don't know everything about it yet. And so I'm not going to speak completely about it, but what I can tell you, all you parents out there, please, it's not just one hit. It's a cumulative. So let's not be concerned about if your son or daughter just falls down and bangs their head. Certainly there's a lot of research on it. And I think by Brett Favre stepping up and talking about it, it certainly opens our eyes to a very important situation. Hey, listen, I want to bring Jordan up. We want to talk a little bit about this. Obviously, he has just watched it for the first time. I've watched it twice since yesterday when it was released. I found it at first tough to watch a young boy telling his parents, do not put me in sport. I never had that. I just wanted to play. And if I got banged up, I would just tell my mom and dad, play. Let's hear it from Jordan, who is obviously, you've been concussed. But more importantly, I wanted to hear from your perspective, Jordan, with all the technology we have, with all the messaging that comes on these things with Instagram, Facebook. Tell me what your first thoughts are when you see that young boy grow into a university, obviously a college player, and then moving into Brett Favre. Love to hear your take on that.
It's a really powerful message because, how often will kids say, stop, I don't feel comfortable doing this. They kind of just go with the flow. So I think right off the bat, that grabs your attention and just, it's kind of just a weird thing because we don't expect the younger generation to be educated on things like concussions and, the risk of playing physical sports. So it's just a really eye-opening thing. And it's something that I wish I could do as well, kind of go back to my younger self and tell him, you have to be careful about this. You have to watch out for all the things that this can do to you and later on in your life.
Well, of course, you're watching Concussed, Understanding the Invisible Injury. Producer Jordan, thank you for joining us. It was a tough week. I had 3 or 4 guests lined up, but I think this is important. After it was launched yesterday, I tried to get a hold of Chris Nowinski. I'd like to get comments from him. I'm a very good friend of his. I respect all his work that he's doing. And of course, the word CTE is a scary word, but you got to remember the guy that just did this PSA is Brett Favre. I know you know the name. He recorded 297 consecutive games over 19 seasons and is regarded as one of the toughest players ever to play the game. And here he is now coming out and putting a red flag up and saying, hey, let's take this serious. And one of the things that I saw, there were some comments, while the overall prevalence of CTE in high school football population is unknown and cannot be determined from the brain bank sample, we do have to take some common sense here. From the issues that you went through as a young man, obviously suffering a couple of concussions back to back that kind of sent you down a very spiral road that there were a lot of forks, you didn't know where to go. This is obviously saying to a parent, listen, your kid's up until 14, your brain's still, and even up till 21, the brain is still developing. But it's those formative years, from obviously being a baby all the way up to, we're putting a number on it. I don't think you can just say everybody's brains develop the exact same way, but they're using the number 14, age 14. What would you have done had you known more? Obviously, would you have gone to your parents and do what this young man just did to his parents?
I just don't know that because, it was such a big part of my life growing up. And, being a goalie, there is no flag football equivalent for us. There's like non-contact hockey leagues, but the risk for a goalie is the exact same. But my career ended on a shot to the head, and that happens on almost a nightly basis for us. So it's one of those things where, yes, the risk factor is there, obviously, but at the same time, you're going to lose out on a lot of valuable experiences coming up. You kind of think back to your younger days and all those fond hockey memories that you have, and it's just kind of hard to live without those.
Well, you know what? And we're not here to scare anybody. This isn't scare tactics. It's not scare tactics from Chris Nowinski and the Concussion Legacy Foundation. They just want us to be prepared. It's like, when in smoking in the old days with secondhand smoke, we never knew any better. Right, my parents smoked like chimneys around us kids, and we thought it was just normal. Now that we know that it does the damage that it does, we take precautions. You as a parent are obviously concerned about the developing lungs of your child. So we should be thinking about this also. I want to just read off a couple of things here. The odds of developing CTE may increase by 30% per year of a tackle football played. Some people are challenging that, but I think if you think about that for a second, if a young boy starts or girl starts at the age of 5 instead of the age of 14, it might give him or her 10 times the opportunity to develop this disease. Again, caveat, we don't know everything about it. I know that's why Boston University and Robert Cantu and Dr. Ann McKee, along with Chris Nowinski, are doing us justice by doing the research. We need the research. But before all the research is conclusive, we should have some caution. And I think that's what this is doing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of leagues have come a long way in respects to that. Especially, I mean, it's tough to say, but the NFL has come a long way as well. They've cut down on the amount of days where teams can practice in full equipment, so they're not subject to all that contact 7 days a week like they were a couple of years ago. And it's just kind of cool to see like the leagues actually taking a response to this. I think it's something that has to be done, especially in leagues like the NFL, where like you just said, these kids have been doing this their whole lives, and at a certain point, it's all going to add up.
Yeah.
And like what I said with the NFL, like that's the steps that these leagues need to make. Cutting down on all like the physicality when it's not a game setting, because that all adds up.
Right, and we're seeing that obviously in practice. There's a lot of non-contact drills being done. So if they're doing it at that age, obviously in the pros, it's sending a message down below saying, obviously we're concerned, you should be concerned too. Here's a very important stat. The PSA implores parents to choose flag football instead of tackle for their child to reduce their exposure to repetitive head impacts. That's what this is about. It's repetitive injury to the brain, right? And as you have contact, it may not be premeditated contact. It may be accidental. Concussions don't know the difference. So here it is. According to the CDC, in flag football, a typical youth player will receive about 8 head impacts a year versus with tackle, 378. That is an enormous jump. So obviously, if you continue on pounding your knee on a regular basis, eventually you're going to do damage to your knee. The difference is that we can actually, facilitate proper therapy for our knee. And if we need to, as we get older, we can replace it. The one thing we can't do with a brain is replace it. And I want to do a shout out to Fired Up Network for being a part of this great program, Concussed, Understanding the Invisible Injury. We're obviously going to be doing a lot more talking about bringing on people that are the experts in it, finding out, just like we heard your story and Jamie last week about her dealing with her daughters. We're bringing Madeline on next week. Madeline's going to talk to us about her specific injury and how it was life-altering. And now she's part of the Concussion Legacy Foundation with Dr. Robert Cantu. So we're really excited to get her perspective on this. As we're talking about this PSA and what Brett Favre has produced, this young boy really opens our eyes because he's having a one-on-one conversation with his mother and father, just opening their eyes because they're thinking, oh, little Johnny, little Nancy, let's just send him off to practice or off to playing football or soccer or hockey or rugby. They're not really thinking about what the ramifications can be because we're not taught that. And maybe a parent is saying, well, Johnny, they're going out and running around. They're getting in shape. But there are risks to it, and we want to try and mitigate those risks. And that's what obviously you can show that right behind me, the Team Up, Speak Up to Fight Against Concussions. That is another platform from the Concussion Legacy Foundation. You can go to concussionfoundation.org. That's concussionfoundation.org, and you can sign up for this program. It's basically an opportunity for you as a parent, as a coach, as a trainer, as a player to sign up and say, I will protect my friends. I will speak up if I suffer a concussion, and I will speak up if my teammate suffers a concussion, and maybe that teammate is not prepared. We have far too often heard about situations where we saw our very good friend Eric Pelly do a pact with his friend not to tell his parents, and unfortunately he was concussed again, and we lost him almost 12 years ago to what's called second impact syndrome. And Joan Pelly has been just an absolute fantastic ambassador for our program. And it's actually why the book Concussed was written. I had heard her story. We had met her and her family down in Pittsburgh, and it was eye-opening. It really made me understand that we needed to do more, and that's certainly what the Team Up, Speak Up platform is. I'll bring Jordan up here. I've got a question for you, Jordan. Talk to me a little bit about, you've heard what Team Up, Speak Up is. You sign a document or a document to say, I will do this. I will stand up for my teammate. Did you ever go through it where people would say to you, hey, listen, Jordan, if I get concussed and I'm struggling a little bit, don't tell mom or dad? Did you ever hear those stories before?
I mean, 100%. I mean, I went through them. I had teammates come to me, they take a hit the wrong way or it's a little too high. And they come to the bench, I got crap, like that just winded me. And, you don't know what you're supposed to do there. It's a really tough situation because you don't want to throw your buddy under the bus. So he's asking you for a favor. At the same time, it's the right thing to do. And, looking back at it now, I wish I played it a little differently. I did tell a coach at a certain point, but a lot had already happened before that. So it's just it's a really tough situation to be in. And I don't wish it on anyone, especially when it's coming from a teammate in a junior level situation. That occurrence happened when I was playing junior C, and yeah, it doesn't matter what level you play or where you play, it's going to happen, and you have to be prepared for it.
Well, a really good comment coming here from Jeff Lieberman. Thank you. We really have to get to parents to really understand that they could actually help and possibly avoid concussions and protect their children. Let's stop all the nonsense and let's get to the real heart of the problem. Absolutely. Listen, we have Rowan's Law in our country. Of course, that was developed through the loss of Rowan Stringer. She was a rugby player in Ottawa in 2013. She passed from second impact syndrome, just like Eric Pelly, who is actually in the book. The story is just absolutely heart-wrenching when you read it about what Eric had done. And I think Rowan's Law is very similar to this, allowing people to understand that these young boys and girls actually make pacts, just what you said. Hey, don't tell mom or dad, don't tell the coach. I'll play through this. I'll pop some aspirins. All I got is a headache. It's just a headache. Well, that headache can turn out to be tragic. And I think we need to step up and be the adults in the picture and make sure that we are educating everybody about the cause, effect, and consequences of this injury. And that's what Stop Concussion is about. And that's why we're so honored to be a part and working with the Concussion Legacy Foundation. Just before we end the program, I want to talk about the impact of that PSA now. From your perspective, it's harsh, like it hits you, right? Because it's saying to everybody that's been following, hey, we're going to have to realize what we were doing previous to this PSA was maybe wrong. And we as the adults have to say, hang on a sec here, we better take note. But there are people out there, Jordan, that'll push through it and say, it's all boulder dash. It's not true. How do you think it's going to be for that coach that's been coaching a certain way, a 12-year-old? How is he or she going to take this messaging?
Well, I don't know if you've seen it, but there are a couple of videos that kind of went viral over the last few months or so of youth football coaches in the States. They were doing like the Oklahoma drill where you're on your back, you get up and you go head on head with someone. And these kids are like 8, 9, 10. Like why are you even considering doing this? It was really tough to watch. And these old head coaches, especially in football, it's going to take them a lot to change. These guys are very, very grounded, very rooted in their beliefs. So it's going to be a really big change. It's going to take a lot to kind of come over this. It's good to see guys like Jeff Learman are going to help out kind of through this process. And seeing that commercial from Brett Favre actually saying, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. That just makes the message that much more powerful.
Well, listen, I'm just making some notes here as I'm listening to you talk. I think it's really important to understand that the game is, and Jeff, I was just going to come out with this, and he's already posted it. Money does play a factor in this, and I think it's a trickle-down effect. Obviously, we know there are concussions in pro sport, and we have our young boys and girls watching pro sport, and this isn't a bash on anybody. It's just the fact when we're presented facts, we have to listen. And when we understand that we are doing damages to our brain at an alarming rate, we have to look and change. We have to. It's just, it's a necessity. Because even at pro sport, Jordan, had you not been concussed, you could have maybe gone on and played, maybe not in the NHL, but you could have played maybe East Coast League or SPHL, or maybe played for your national team, whether that be in Hong Kong and Australia. You never know, or Canada, right? But you'll never know, because of the fact that concussions help take you out of the game. And I think it's really important that we listen to the stories that are going to come out. We're going to have Madeline Uretsky on next week. She's going to walk us through her life-changing and altering concussion, how it changed her life. And we heard from her mother last week how it also changed the dynamic of the family. We're going to get Paul Rosen, obviously one of our big ambassadors. We'll get him on to talk about his journey with concussions and down a very, very dark path that almost took his life. Scott Holler is going to be coming back on and giving us information on a regular basis, which is so important because we've got to end the myths. We hear mouth guards. Wear a mouth guard, it's going to prevent concussions. Wear a helmet, it's going to prevent concussion. Still today, we know that that's not a fact. It may mitigate some of the risk, but it does not prevent concussions. And I certainly think we need to get that message out. Jordan, as I let you go, the fact that we are talking concussions, you've been very vulnerable in your speaking. You've actually opened up and given us some of your personal experiences with it. And sometimes people are nervous about doing that. In the old days, in my days, we would have never come on a program like this and talked about it because we felt, you're weak. What are your thoughts on that now today? Obviously, seeing all these athletes that we've lost along the way through obviously CTE and through drugs, alcohol, and suicide, we know that there's a mental health factor. How do you feel about the messaging now?
I think it still does have quite a bit of way to go, because I think the biggest issue right now is when someone gets a concussion, they don't want to report it because they're not because they're embarrassed or because they're not feeling great. They don't do it because they don't want to miss out on anything. And with a concussion, you're almost separated a little bit from your team and that kind of atmosphere that you're used to having. And I know for sure, but back when I had my concussions, that was one of the biggest things I missed. Just being around other people, being around my teammates, and actually going out and playing hockey. I think that's probably the biggest issue moving forward, and that's to be the biggest drawback to all this concussion research and things that are going to be happening, is because these guys don't want to miss out on what they should be doing.
Right, but if you're concussed, obviously you know it. I've been there too. You're not the same person. You're not the same player. So we've got to take you out. And I think it's really important. Jeff has come up with awareness. And I'm the one that's been pounding the drum. It's education. Get the parents educated. Get the coaches educated. They don't need to be doctors. They just need to know what the signs and symptoms are. And when it doesn't look right, pull the young boy or girl out. Or if you're playing in beer league, pull yourself out and make sure that you don't put yourself at the risk of suffering even worse. And listen, in 3 weeks, I've got a special guest coming on. Her name is Kaylin Walter. She works with Shift Concussion Management. She has been just an absolute true genius when it comes with Scott Haller's program. She's a director of program development. She's an instructor. She understands this injury better than most. And I'm really excited to have her join us in 3 weeks. So listen, make sure you check out next week. We're going to have Madeline Uretsky. I know Scott's going to pop up and say hello. The following week, we're going to, I hope, to have Chris Nowinski so we can talk a little bit more about Team Up, Speak Up. That platform starts in September. And most importantly, look at the PSA that Concussion Legacy has put out with Brett Favre. Brett Favre would not put himself at risk by making statements that he has made and just making sure that he is saying, listen, I don't want your child to go through what a lot of children are going through. So listen, wake up, get the awareness, understand that this injury is serious and can do a lot of damage. Jordan, final word to you.
I mean, it's just something that it's an ongoing battle, and to keep fighting. It's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to be a long-term thing.
Well, Jordan, thank you for joining me tonight, and I look forward to producing with you next week's show with Madeline Uretsky. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time to be out with us today. I think it's really important that this message, as we go into September, this is a message, a PSA for football. But listen to the words. It's a sport. It's contact. Make sure when your young boy or girl are going to these sports that they have the proper concussion protocol in place. We don't want our kids damaging their brains before the age of 14. That's why they picked this number. So please make sure you understand as you let your child play sport, be educated. Don't stick your head under the rug. Make sure you understand. Again, you don't have to have a medical degree to understand if your young boy or girl continues on having contact to the head or even contact to the body that creates issues for the brain. There could be problems down the road, and none of us want that. All right, thank you for being a part of Concussed, Understanding the Invisible Injury. Look forward to a couple of weeks of real exciting guests. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you, Fired Up Network, and of course, Connected, a mental health initiative. Good night.